The rain in Minneapolis that February did not fall so much as a tack. It came in sideways off the lake, freezing the moment it hit the pavement, turning the sidewalks outside my office into sheets of glass. It was a Thursday. The kind of Thursday that felt less like a day and more like a punishment. I was hunched over my laptop on the 11th floor of Harrow Freight Solutions, trying to untangle a shipping delay that threatened to strand product on 2 continents. The overhead lights buzzed with that particular hum that lives behind your eyes by 4 in the afternoon. Somewhere past the cubicles, a copier jammed for the 3rd time that day. My phone lit up. "Mom." My whole face softened before I even answered. That morning I had wired $4,000. Every dollar of the bonus I had spent 11 months earning. To book my family's flights to Slovenia for my sister Blair's wedding at Lake Bled. "Hi. Mom. Did the payment go through okay? Honey, there's been a little change to the sleeping arrangements at the villa." My mother, Carol, had a particular chirpy tone she used right before delivering bad news. She'd used that same tone when I was 11, and she'd donated my entire seashell collection to the church rummage sale without asking. "The groom's business partner is coming," she went on. "He invested quite a lot in Grant's new venture. So, well, we gave him your room." My fingers stopped moving over the keyboard. "Where am I supposed to sleep?" "Oh, you're so resourceful." "Sweetheart, there's a lovely little guest house about 4 miles from the villa. 3.5 stars. But the reviews are mostly good." The blood left my face. A guest house 4 miles away, while my older sister Blair and her fiancé took the master suite. While my younger sister Paige got the room with the lake view. While my parents settled into the guest cottage. "Mom, I sent you $4,000 for the tickets this morning." A long pause. I could hear her breathing. Could practically see her twisting her wedding ring the way she always did when she was stalling. "About that. Honey." Paige needed good lighting for her content. You know how important her online following is to her career. Economy is just so unflattering in her photos. So I used the money to upgrade her to 1st class. She's going to tag the airline and everything. My hand tightened around the phone. The office suddenly felt too small. "And my ticket." "Oh, you always figure things out. There's an economy fare with 3 layovers, Newark, Reykjavik, and Frankfurt that gets you there just in time for the reception. It's only 19 hours of travel. You'll miss the ceremony, but you've seen Blair in a dress 100 times at the showers. You don't mind flying economy. You're not particular like Paige." The words landed like something physical. "You always figure things out." A decade of memories flickered through my mind like a slideshow nobody asked to see. Filing my parents' taxes every April because my father couldn't manage the software. Resetting the family streaming password every single month. Driving across town at midnight to pay my father's parking tickets before they went to collections. Teaching Paige how to dispute a fraudulent charge. Setting up Blair's wedding website because she couldn't figure out the template. Fixing the router. Programming the thermostat. Remembering every birthday. Sending every card. Making every reservation. Not a single thank you in 10 years. Just times you always figure things out. Because I wasn't a daughter in that house. I was a utility. A free service that got used and set back on the shelf until the next emergency. My phone buzzed against my ear, an email notification. I pulled it away from my face. A confirmation. 1st class upgrade. Paige Whitfield. MSP, 2LU. $4,127. My bonus. Earned working 16-hour days through a warehouse strike. Saved by packing my own lunches and walking instead of taking ride shares. Converted into a lie-flat seat and champagne for a 24-year-old who had never held a full-time job in her life. Something in my chest did not break. It did not shatter. It froze the way water goes from liquid to something hard and permanent in an instant. Every warm feeling I had ever carried for my family turned to ice in a single breath. And underneath the cold, I felt something I had never felt before where my family was concerned. Absolute clarity. Honey, are you still there? I didn't shout. I didn't cry. When my voice came out, it was calm in a way that frightened even me. I'm here. Good. So you'll look at those economy flights, maybe pack some snacks. Airport food is so expensive. And you're always so good at, I have to go. Mom, there's something I need to take care of. Of course. Dear. Don't work too hard. See you in Slovenia. Oh, and bring that blue scarf Blair wanted to borrow. She forgot to ask. I hung up. For a long moment, I sat perfectly still, watching the rain streak the window. Then I reached under my desk, behind the box of printer paper nobody ever touched, and opened the small fireproof lockbox hidden there. My fingers found the worn savings passbook immediately. My great-aunt Josephine's account. $120,000. Aunt Josephine, my father's eccentric older sister, had died 3 years earlier. At her funeral, she had pulled me aside 2 hours before she collapsed and pressed that passbook into my hands. This is for when you can't stand them anymore, she had whispered, her paper-thin hand gripping mine with surprising strength. Not times if. When. Because they will take and take until there's nothing left of you. This is your way out. Use it. I had laughed it off at the time. I wasn't laughing now. I pulled out a sheet of paper and wrote 1 line times. Mom? You're right. I do always figure things out. And I'm going to figure out my own life. Starting right now. Then I called her back. She picked up on the first ring. Did you find a flight already? I told you. Mom, I said, my voice steel, wrapped in ice. You're right. I do always figure things out. And I'm going to figure out my own life. Starting right now. What, honey? What does that? I hung up. I powered the phone off completely. Outside, the freezing rain kept falling. But I didn't feel cold anymore. I didn't feel anything. And somehow, that felt exactly right. Number, the unraveling begins. Friday morning brought the kind of bitter cold that makes Minneapolis feel like another planet. I walked into the office in yesterday's clothes, having spent the night on my couch making lists instead of sleeping. My resignation letter sat printed in a plain envelope under my arm. My boss, Derek Mallory, had the corner office on the top floor. All glass walls and furniture he'd expensed to the company. I could see him through the window, boots on his desk, talking loudly on the phone, no doubt taking credit for someone else's work again. I walked in without knocking and set the envelope on his desk. He held up 1 finger, kept talking. Yeah. We crushed that logistics problem. I was up all night on it. He had been at a sports bar. I had been the one up until 2 a.m. fixing it. He finally hung up and opened the envelope. His eyes scanned the page. Then he looked up with a smirk that made my skin crawl. Immediate resignation. What? You get a better offer. Something like that. His smirk widened into something predatory. I don't think so. Whitfield, you signed a non-compete. 12 months. You work for any logistics company in North America or Europe and I will sue you into the ground. You'll never work in this industry again. It was a threat he had used before. To keep talented people trapped and burning out while he stole their ideas. I picked up my box, the coffee mug Aunt Josephine had given me. The small succulent that had survived 3 years of fluorescent lighting. A photo from my college graduation, and smiled at him. Don't worry, Derek. I'm going somewhere you don't even know exists on a map. What's that supposed to mean? It means your non-compete says North America and Europe. The world is bigger than your geography knowledge suggests. Have a nice life. I walked out, leaving his door open, his voice trailing after me about professional courtesy. I was already in the elevator when the doors closed on that entire chapter of my life. The next 2 days were a blur of calculated dismantling. I sold my car for $18,000 cash. No negotiation. I listed my furniture online at prices so low they started bidding wars. Strangers hauled away my couch, my table, my bed frame within hours. I walked into my leasing office and handed over $3,000 to break my lease immediately. Cash on the table, erasing the 60-day notice clause the manager tried to cite. By Monday afternoon, I sat in a bank that stayed open late, moving every dollar I had, the $18,000 from the car. 3 years of careful savings. And Aunt Josephine's $120,000 into an offshore account my parents had never heard of. One that couldn't be traced through the family's usual channels. That evening, in a coffee shop, I opened my laptop for the last time before selling it too. I set up a scheduled message, one email, sent on the first of every month to my parents' shared account. For the next 5 years, I am alive, safe, and healthy. Do not file a police report. I will not respond. Proof of life. And nothing more. They couldn't claim I was missing. They couldn't trace me. I would be present enough to exist and impossible to reach. At 10 that night, I bought a prepaid phone with cash. Transferred a handful of essential contacts. None of them family. Snapped the SIM card from my old phone in half and dropped it in a trash can. By midnight, I stood at the airport ticket counter, buying a one-way fare to Medellin, Colombia. Not North America under the letter of my contract's intent. Not Europe. Colombia had something else. 2 coffee, leather, and textile suppliers no one in my old industry had touched. I had been quietly researching it for months, looking for an edge. That edge had just arrived early. The plane lifted off at 3 in the morning. I watched the lights of Minneapolis shrink and vanish into the dark. Number, what I missed. And what I later learned. I wasn't there to see what happened next. But between the voicemails I never answered and what Blair eventually confessed through tears, I can reconstruct it well enough. 3 days after I vanished, my father tried to log into their investment account. Something I had always handled every quarter. 2-factor authentication sent a code to a phone number ending in the digits 88. Not his number. My mother recognized it instantly as mine. They called my old office. The receptionist cheerfully informed them I no longer worked there. Then my mother's phone buzzed with my first scheduled email. I am alive, safe, and healthy. My father read it over her shoulder and asked what on earth it meant. My mother, standing in the study surrounded by the comfortable life I had quietly maintained for years, understood with sudden, terrible clarity. I was gone. Really gone. And I had locked the door behind me on my way out. Spring arrived at Lake Bled 3 months later. All blooming wildflowers and soft Slovenian light. Blair's wedding should have been perfect. Instead, it was chaos. The florist delivered the wrong flowers, and no one knew which vendor to call because I had always kept that list. The seating cards had 3 names misspelled with no one to catch it. Half the guests had dietary restrictions nobody had properly recorded. Paige spent the reception taking selfies in her bridesmaid dress, posting from her first-class flight, champagne flute in hand, oblivious to the disaster around her. Several of her followers asked, in the comments, why she'd flown first class while her sister was nowhere to be found. Blair stood by the fountain asking again and again, "Where's Ellie? She would have fixed all of this." My mother patted her shoulder and said the flight must have been delayed. But my mother knew better. My monthly email had arrived right on schedule. There was an empty chair in the family section during the ceremony, and everyone pretended not to notice. Back home, the bills piled up. My father discovered he was locked out of the family bank account security questions he'd never known the answers to, because I had set them up years earlier. A trip to the branch with 2 forms of ID and a marriage certificate finally restored access. 3 humiliating hours later, but by then the damage was done. A quarterly estimated tax payment I had always scheduled automatically had gone unpaid. The IRS's system flagged it, triggered a review, and turned up an underpayment from the prior year as well. Penalties, interest, and a final bill of $98,000. Due immediately. Meanwhile, Paige kept spending her way across Europe on the family credit card designer dresses. Expensive dinners, always tagged and posted. The statement arrived at $53,000. My mother gasped audibly. Paige, unbothered, called it content investment. I need to look successful to be successful. That's how the algorithm works. The family's credit score, once a pristine 810 under my quiet management, dropped to the high 600s within a single quarter. Cards started declining at checkout. It was humiliating. And it was entirely of their own making. Number fever in the mountains. While all of that unraveled 5,000 miles away, I was in the highlands outside Medellin, meeting with small textile and coffee cooperatives, when a fever hit me so hard I couldn't stand without the room spinning. The guest house owner, a woman named Elena, brought soup and medicine and sat with me through the worst of it, lying there, phone in hand, my mother's contact information glowing on the screen. I understood how easy it would be. One call. Mom, I'm sick. I need help. And despite everything, they probably would have come, but then I heard it again. Echoing through the fever times, you always figure things out. Not times will help you. Not times will take care of you. Because when my family helped, it always came with strings, the unspoken expectation that I'd go back to being their free assistant, their emergency contact, their unpaid safety net. My hand loosened. The phone slid onto the mattress. Elena came in, lifted my head gently, and spooned warm broth into my mouth, murmuring comfort in words I didn't understand, but felt anyway. A stranger showed me more care in 5 minutes than my family had in 5 years. 3 days later, the fever broke. I sat up slowly, weak but clear-headed. Something had died in those 3 days, not my body, which had survived just fine, but the part of me that still needed them. The part that believed love could be earned through service. That part was gone, frozen for good in a small room in the Andes foothills. What remained was colder, harder, and far more focused. Building something of my own. Over the following year, I became something of a legend in the regional supply trade. I started small, using Aunt Josephine's money to buy samples directly from artisan cooperatives, woven textiles, leather goods, specialty coffee lots that boutique retailers back home would fight over. I learned enough Spanish to negotiate fairly. I learned which routes to trust and which to avoid. I learned to judge quality with my fingertips. By month 6, I held exclusive contracts with a dozen family-run workshops. By month 9, I was shipping containers to boutique retailers on both coasts. By month 14, I had turned Aunt Josephine's $120,000 into nearly $400,000. That's when Catherine Voss called. Catherine had built Meridian Global Logistics from a single Newark warehouse into an international powerhouse that made my old company look like a lemonade stand. She'd heard about the American with the cold eyes who always delivers on time. And she tracked me down over black coffee in a cafe in Medellin. I don't care about your resume, she said. I don't care that you walked out on your last job with no notice. I care that you did in 14 months what most people can't do in 5 years. She offered me a title, Global Strategy Director, a team of 20, a budget of $15 million, and a base salary of $270,000, with performance bonuses that could double it. Corner office over Lake Superior at the Duluth headquarters. I calculated the time. 16 months since I'd left. I'll take it, I said. We shook hands. I landed back in Minneapolis on the 1st of May with 4 suitcases. roughly $400,000 in assets, and a job title that made my old one look like an unpaid internship. I didn't call my family. If they wanted proof I existed, they had my monthly email. I had work to do. Number, the ambush. 3 months into the new role, I'd already restructured the company's entire South American supply chain, cut shipping costs by more than a fifth, and locked in exclusive contracts across Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. Then an old colleague texted me a warning times, "Derek knows you're at Meridian. He just lost a major contract to us. He's furious. Watch your back." I wasn't surprised the industry was small enough for word to travel. I was surprised he came after my family instead of me. I didn't witness what happened. But Paige eventually confessed the details in a desperate bid to save herself. Broke. Cut off from the family credit cards. And watching her online following shrink now that the exotic backdrops had dried up. She'd been an easy target when Derek slid into her messages with an offer. They met at a coffee shop. He bought her an expensive drink, complimented her feed, and told her he needed proof that I'd stolen client information before I left emails, message logs, anything showing I'd used the family account for anything questionable. He slid an envelope across the table. Inside was $10,000 in cash. Consulting fee. He called it. There could be more if my case against her holds up. Paige rationalized it easily. I had abandoned the family. I deserved whatever came to me. She took the money. 2 weeks later, a formal complaint landed on my desk from Meridian's board of directors. Scheduled for Monday at 2 in the afternoon. Legal counsel welcome. Attached was a polished packet of fabricated evidence, doctored emails, manufactured chat logs, falsified timestamps, supposedly proving I'd stolen client data before I left my old company. It was convincing. It was also completely false. And I could prove it. I called my company's digital forensics lead, a sharp analyst named Priya. I need the complete cloud audit trail from my old employer's servers for my user account. Every login, every timestamp. I need it by Monday morning. That's 2 days. Can you do it? A pause. For you, absolutely. This is about that complaint, isn't it? Yes. Then let's bury whoever tried to bury you. Number. The boardroom. Monday brought bright, cold sunshine off the lake. I walked into the conference room in a charcoal suit, a laptop bag over my shoulder. The board sat around a long table. Catherine at the head, 4 executives flanking her, and Derek across from me wearing the smile of a man who thought he'd already won. Catherine didn't waste time. "Mr. Mallory has brought serious allegations against Ms. Whitfield. Present your evidence." Derek clicked through a polished slide deck, the doctored emails, the fabricated timestamps. She systematically downloaded proprietary client data before resigning, then used it to poach our clients. I'm prepared to pursue damages in excess of $10 million. The room went quiet. Catherine turned to me. Anything to say? I stood, connected my laptop to the projector, and opened the audit log. Mr. Mallory's evidence is impressive. It's also entirely fabricated. This is the cloud audit trail from my former employer's servers, an immutable log the provider itself maintains. It cannot be edited by anyone, including system administrators. I highlighted a row. He claims this file was accessed by me 2 weeks before my resignation. The actual audit trail shows it was created 3 months after I had already left the country and created from a device registered to his own office. Murmurs rippled around the table. Derek's face went pale. Every piece of his evidence shows the same discrepancy. I continued. I can walk through each one, down to the second. Derek stood, red-faced. Those logs could be manipulated. They can't, Priya said, stepping into the room. I'm the forensic analyst who pulled them, with full legal authorization, directly from the provider's servers. They're cryptographically signed. What you're looking at is objective fact. One of the board members, an older man named Peterson, leaned forward. Mr. Mallory, are you accusing Ms. Whitfield of falsifying government-grade audit records? Derek pivoted. Even if the files are wrong, she's still violating her non-compete. Logistics work is explicitly barred. My agreement specified North America and Europe. I said, I spent over a year in South America. That falls outside the restriction. I violated nothing. You, on the other hand, just submitted fabricated evidence to try to destroy someone's career. That's fraud. Silence. Then I opened a second file. There's something else you should all see. This is a customs declaration for a container, Mr. Mallory's company shipped last month. Filed under a tariff code for low-duty rubber soles. Here's what customs actually found inside. A photo appeared, finished leather footwear. Misdeclared to dodge an anti-dumping duty of roughly 25% on top of the standard rate. He's been mislabeling containers for years to avoid nearly a third in taxes owed. That's customs fraud. And I filed the tip 3 days ago. As if on Quay. The door opened. 2 federal agents stepped in with badges raised. Derek Mallory, we have a warrant for your company's import records. We'll need you to come with us. The room dissolved into chaos, Derek shouting about lawyers. The board talking over each other. I closed my laptop, picked up my bag, and walked out past him as the agents read him his rights. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. That evening, Catherine poured 2 glasses of scotch in her office. That was the most spectacular professional takedown I've seen in 30 years. How long were you sitting on that customs information? Since about month 6 in Colombia. I admitted. I heard things through the supplier network and started documenting. Just in case. Men like him always come back. You played the long game. I learned it from my family. I said, they taught me people will take everything you let them. So I stopped letting them. We clinked glasses. 2 weeks later, the board voted me a promotion senior vice president of global operations. A $50,000 raise. And a seat at the executive table, number dinner with the family. 2 weeks after the boardroom. I finally agreed to see the people who shared my last name. I chose a restaurant called Harlow's. Upscale enough to make them uncomfortable. Public enough that no one would make a scene. They arrived together, a united front. My father's hair had gone fully gray. My mother's face carried new lines. Blair came in visibly pregnant. Unable to meet my eyes. Paige trailed behind in last season's clothes. Her usual accessories conspicuously absent. Anger already written across her face before she'd even sat down. You came back, my mother said, voice wavering between relief and reproach. You've been here, and you never called. I've been working downtown. I said, I just didn't tell you. That was the point. Paige slammed her hand on the table. Do you have any idea what you did to us? Dad almost lost the house. Mom had panic attacks every time the phone rang. You're so selfish. Or, I said. My voice even. I left you to manage your own lives for the first time. Family doesn't take $4,000 meant for someone's plane ticket and spend it on themselves. Family doesn't give away someone's room at their own sister's wedding. My mother flinched. That was a mistake. Honey, we didn't think. You never do. You just assume I'll figure it out. Because I always do. Right. The table went silent. A waiter appeared. Sensed the tension. And left the menus without a word. Since we're talking about family, I said, reaching into my bag. Let's talk about family. I set a worn manila envelope on the table. Paige's eyes went wide. You wouldn't. She whispered. My father opened it with shaking hands. Police reports. Attorney invoices. Court paperwork. His face went slack. 4 years ago, I said. Paige got behind the wheel after a party. Lost control. Totaled a parked antique car worth a small fortune. And drove away from the scene. The owner wanted her prosecuted a felony hit and run that could have meant a record and possibly time. She came to me. Begged me not to tell you. Said it would destroy you. So I drained my entire emergency fund. $15,000 for a specialist attorney who got her into a diversion program. Another $3,000 to settle the damages her insurance refused to cover. I kept her secret for 4 years. And she repaid me by selling fabricated evidence about me to my old boss for $10,000. The table went completely still. Blair finally spoke. Barely above a whisper. Paige. Is that true? Paige could only nod. Mascara running, my father stared at her like he didn't recognize his own daughter. You did what? He said she'd stolen from him. Paige sobbed. I needed the money. You'd cut off my cards. I didn't know what else to do. So you framed the sister who kept you out of a courtroom. Blair said. Sharper than I had ever heard her. No one moved to comfort Paige. The untouched food sat cooling between us. The lake house. My father finally said. Voice breaking. We had to sell it. Distress sale. We barely got anything. I know, I said. The LLC that bought it this morning was mine. The table erupted. You bought it back, my mother breathed. I set a set of keys on the table without handing them to anyone. Paid cash. 20% over asking. To make sure the offer was accepted same day. It's in my name now. My property. My father exhaled. Half in relief. You can still use it. I continued. Holidays. Summers. All of it. Free of charge. But I decide who's welcome there. And Paige, you're not. Until you pay back every dollar you owe me. $15,000 for the lawyer. $3,000 for the settlement. 4 years of simple interest. Plus the $10,000 you took from Derek to betray me. That comes to just under $32,000. I'll send the invoice. The lake house is the one place I actually love. Paige said. Voice cracking. Then you have a reason to pay it back quickly. Blair looked at her sister evenly. You did this to yourself. Paige. I stood, set enough cash on the table to cover the meal, and paused at the door. You can keep the house. Keep the holidays. But you'll do it on my terms now. Because I hold the deed and I hold the keys. Welcome to what it feels like when someone else has all the power. I hope it teaches you something. Then I walked out into the cold. Clear Minneapolis night and breathed easier than I had in years. 2 years after that frozen February afternoon. I sat in the first-class lounge at the airport with a glass of champagne and a tablet full of contracts for an expansion into the Asian market, an opportunity that would have seemed impossible before all of this began. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother times, happy birthday. Honey, I'm sorry for everything. I'm proud of you. A year earlier. Those words would have meant everything. I would have felt the old desperate rush of being seen. Now I felt nothing at all, not anger. Not vindication. Just quiet. It was my 30th birthday. I'd forgotten entirely until my assistant reminded me the day before. I declined the day off. There was work to do. I typed 6 words back times, thanks. Mom. In a meeting. Polite. Distant. True. Then I switched the phone to airplane mode. The boarding call came. I walked to the gate, settled into seat 1A, and accepted a glass of champagne from the flight attendant, the same seat. The same luxury my sister had once taken from me. This time I had paid for it myself, with money I had earned, for a trip I had chosen, to a destination I had picked. Nobody had taken it from anyone. Nobody had assumed I would simply figure it out. The plane lifted off, and I watched the city lights shrink below the wing until they disappeared into the dark. I thought of my parents. probably planning their next summer at the lake house. Careful now. Uncertain if the door might close again, I thought of Paige, calculating how many months it would take to earn back $32,000. I thought of Blair, who had called days after that dinner to apologize, to admit she'd always known the family leaned on me too hard and had simply been too comfortable to say so, asking if we could start over as actual sisters, instead of as one useful person and everyone else. I told her maybe. I wasn't ready to close that door. But I wasn't ready to throw it open either. I wasn't running from anything anymore. I wasn't hiding. I was simply living my life. On my own terms. Answerable to no one but myself. I closed my eyes and let myself smile. For the first time in my entire life, I finally felt free.